Good afternoon. Infrastructure, in the very broadest sense, is why the richest in this country were taxed at rates as high as 92% during the prosperous 1950s through mid-1970s. Those who reap the most wealth can only do so by virtue of a functioning society. Therefore, we have always made the lions pay their lion's share to provide smooth roads, straight track, safe skies, sewage treatment, functioning canals, dams that produce electricity, swift-moving ports for steady commerce, safe drinking water, safe food and drugs, and the best education this society can afford, so that we can make future lions. Taxation provides civilization, in other words. That civilization seems to be faltering here is because, like Rome in its final years, the lions, corporate oligarchs, have carved out a system within this society whereby they are free to extract vast personal wealth without fear of paying their due, taxes. Like Rome, the oligarchs own the politicians, and taxes collected from a dwindling middle class go toward the biggest army on earth, the tiny salaries of those soldiers, and the corporate welfare of companies like General Electric, Exxon, and Monsanto, all of which serve the oligarchs by way of Wall Street. Meanwhile, our infrastructure crumbles. The children of Cain are in charge, the ancient Hebrews would say, meaning empire rules and war is its endless revenue stream. It is the oldest story, or the second oldest story perhaps. Once stratified, this society is now divided into two camps: those who fear the present and the future, and those who think the world is as it should be. The poor are the fastest growing demographic, have no options, and speak now in terms of nihilism as politicians on the right close their schools. The super wealthy are further from the rest of humanity's reality than they have ever been. They jet around to places like Davos, Switzerland, and tell the International Monetary Fund people whom to feed and whom to starve as it suits their portfolios. The truth that Americans in the world missed, mainly because these events coincided with the advent of cable TV, is that the oligarchs of this empire have been chipping away at civilization for more than 30 years. It started perhaps with the ethical lapses of the late 1970s when they closed the asylums and let thousands of sick and dangerous people, many of them veterans mentally wounded from the previous war that began as a lie, onto the streets to fill the public squares and prisons across the country so that the oligarchs themselves could have their taxes lowered a little. Their assumption, I suppose, was that no one would notice. They virtually knocked the legs out from underneath this republic simply by changing tax codes. CEOs and greedy boards threw millions of hardworking men and women onto Reagan's new economy that paid $4.25 an hour, when $25 an hour was what put the butcher's meat on the table. They replaced all these workers with the third world. Then the oligarchs watched their own incomes move from the hundreds of thousands to the hundreds of millions. Now these CEOs, or the next generation of them, are using our politicians to go after schools and teachers, apparently to prevent the next generation from having a clue how this system works. Soldiers are all they need. Look where the greed of a few at the top has gotten us, thanks to America's addiction to distraction. Our best and brightest engineers are either working on weapons systems or making toxic substances out of oil, instead of working on that bright future politicians have been telling us about since 1832. The oligarchs are right now destroying education while dismantling oversight of their dark deeds. Carcinogenic pollution, mostly. Single-party rule over ignorant masses is their plan. To paraphrase Forrest Gump, fascism is as fascism does. Corporations have taken over in this country. Money now flows into the pockets of the bomb and tear gas makers. Our oil economy has produced a toxic and dying world. IT companies hypnotize us with their bling, while Big Pharma capitalizes on all the sickness this has caused our bodies and our souls. And perhaps the saddest of ironies, the heartland now grows infertile crops in toxic soil because of one company's greed. Ladies and gentlemen, government contractors control the government, just as Eisenhower warned. Our politicians work for those who pay for their election and their re-election, period. Infrastructure, in the very broadest sense, is fractured, literally and figuratively. We are down now to endless warfare fought by the bottom 1% for the sole purpose and benefit of the top 1%, and paid for by the remaining 98%. You. The only way to get our democracy back is to make our politicians work for us again. Call them out. Kill your TV. Get off the couch, get down to the Capitol, and take your country back. Paint a sign. Have an opinion. Don't let the haters be the only ones shouting. It's time to pull back the curtain and get a very good look at the real axis of evil inside our borders. Starting with the Koch brothers, perhaps. Imagine peace, please.